Hey folks, welcome to another episode of the Security Table. I am joined here with the people that are collectively now referred to as the gang, with Tanya and Matt and Izar, and we're going to tackle just a kind of an easy problem today. Probably will only take us a couple of minutes to work our way through this one. The whole talent shortage, fact or fiction. That's the issue that we want to explore right now. And with all of us being involved in various cybersecurity roles and hiring, if we took the count, probably over 100 people, I would guess that collectively we've hired over 100 people in our careers, probably more than that. We want to unpack this idea. And so let's kick it off. Tanya, I'm coming to you first. Is there a talent? So let's identify, is there a talent shortage first? Let's see if we even have a problem.
I do think we have a talent shortage. But the way, let's kind of, again, double click into what it means by talent shortage. So when I look at LinkedIn, when I look at just across all the various sites that kind of push and promote jobs, I see a lot to do with around governance, InfoSec jobs, not so much around product security, a lot around cloud. So the question is, do you think we're coming to a place where we need more? The talent shortage is sparked from the need to have more governance around what people do to meet more regulations, because more regulations are coming out at a global level.
Anybody want to respond to that idea? Is it governance driven?
Actually, I want to touch upon something that Tanya started to, I think, to bring out. I have a little chart here that I'm going to introduce for an episode here.
This is Exhibit A.
Exhibit
A.
Attackers versus defenders, IT versus developers, and leaders versus rank and file. So if we're going to have any conversation around talent pool, let's talk about who the talent is, and not necessarily, well, we do need to get into the roles that they may have or what they may work on, because that is important. Whether or not government regulation is a driver for certain skills or for certain, talent pool, the need for bringing on people, we can certainly, and we certainly will debate that. But I think we should slice and dice it in a different way as well. Whether we have people who do security for a living versus people who need to know about security in their day-to-day.
Izar, I love your face. I'm waiting. What's the term of the day?
Shall I hand this grenade over to Izar?
Here's the
he's got a ruler. He has a ruler.
So the is going to be talent, because before we got into this, I made a mistake and I went looking for which other industries refer to people who work in them as talent.
Agreed.
You do not want to go there.
Yeah,
it gets ugly very, very, very fast.
Yes,
Why?
You had to clear your browser history very quickly, did you?
Exactly.
But why?
Tanya, I will leave that bit of research for yourself.
It's an 18 plus discussion.
Yeah, this isn't everyone podcast. So yeah.
But with that in mind, when we use the word talent, we mean people who have a talent for something, or people who are well equipped to do it. Usually, nowadays,
skilled professionals.
Professionals.
Skilled professionals.
Skilled. That's the point. And nowadays, we are having difficulty even filling entry positions from both sides of the thing, both from our dear recruiters that sometimes commit egregious mistakes in phrasing, put it like that, and from a lot of people who are sort of like timid about doing the jump to security, because somehow they got this mystique that security is this amazingly complicated thing, and they don't understand that we are willing to train people on the job. We just want people who are curious, people who want to do the right thing, right?
So you did mention the word talent is going to be the theme today. So I looked up the definition. There's probably 100, but the one that struck to me was natural aptitude or skill.
Exactly.
security is a unique profession, right? There's a turn and burn. There's a lot of pressure.
No, it isn't.
So, Matt, no?
No, it's not
We
rocket
keep
science.
saying that it is, but it isn't. The
You
thing
think
is, we
fake
do.
news?
I think that just like any other profession, we are fortunate to have people who are extremely talented, right? And some of these people helped put this thing together. But do you need to be talented? Do you need to have an innate ability to do something in order to work at security? I would say that the only ability that you need is the ability to ask questions. They don't even have to be the right questions. Just start asking questions and you get there eventually.
I'm gonna push back on that one some
Go for
because
it.
here we go. Matt's got another. So let's think about a pen tester, right? Like I'm actually kind of an anti-pen testing advocate. So, but I'm gonna push that off to the side and say that when I think about the best pen testers that I know, they're good pen testers because they naturally are good at breaking things down and discovering what those things are. Like I've done pen testing in the past. Pen testing is not what I'm the best at by no means.
Same here.
I just don't, my brain doesn't, I just don't, I can assess what the threats are and understand what they are, but spending a week or 2 weeks running tools and banging away on different scenarios and things, it's just not something that I've never had great success at it. But I think about the pen testers that are the top of the industry that I've known. They have a natural inclination towards that. They have a gift in being able to find the one thing out of 1,000, the one thread that they can pull on, and they know how to find the right thread and keep pulling on it until they get into a system. And so that's why I would say, like, and I think about like that type of a skill set, like, can I teach someone to be the world's best pen tester? I don't think I can. I think they have to have some natural gifting in that.
But you're saying I think you have to suit your skills to the job.
But even
Right.
before that, Tanya, even before that, do we need every single pen tester to be one of those talented pen testers? No, you were talking about the top X%. We don't need everybody to be on the top X% because then we don't have a top X%.
Do you want the bottom 10% to be those that are responsible for testing?
No, but I want people to be able to join that bottom 10% and grow into it up to 90%. So perhaps they're not going to be the most amazing pen tester in the world because they lack that natural talent to see the black holes where we don't see them.
Mm-hmm.
But if I can get them from 0 to 90, that's going to plug a hole in the industry that exists, that we are asking for, right?
Yeah.
So
may I? I'm going to put my sign back up here with 4 additional terms: hard and soft versus innate versus learned. Now, I think what Chris is calling out, right, is there's a set of folks who have an innate ability to do certain things that makes them very capable. I'm avoiding skilled and talent here. That makes them very capable at the task at hand, right? Whether we're talking pen tester, code reviewer, threat modeler, program leader, security program manager, and whether you're talking IT cybersecurity or you're talking AppSec or you're talking physical security, port security or border security, right? Because obviously we tend to bias our conversations here around system security without defining that word system, mostly software and hardware, but there's other aspects of security here. I guess we're not talking about physical protection or things like that in this context, at least. But so you have innate ability, and then you have learned capability, right? So you can take somebody who's junior, who has certain skills, certain innate skills, and teach them other things that make them effective in their role, and then others just come with it naturally. And those people who come with it naturally are very few and far between. The top 2 or 3% maybe of the available folks. And by the way, if we're talking pen testers versus not, right? People who do pen testing, who are very good at it, who have innate ability to do it, are in high demand. So we haven't talked about demand versus compensation and benefits and things like that as a factor here. But the people who know what they're doing and the people who like to do what they're doing, who like to bang their head against the wall for 3 weeks at a time, they command a high price. I wanted to call out hard and soft as skill types because we tend to gloss over that, security is not rocket science. A lot of what we do, and especially the four of us here do, are based on a lot of soft skills, right? We can learn how to program. We can learn what the security implications of certain programming languages are, and we'll talk about that at some point, I'm sure. But a lot of what we do is we evangelize, we influence with or without authority. We guide folks to do, nudge them in the right direction, and we help people get over the hurdles that they face from a security standpoint, whether that's program delivery, meeting regulations or audit requirements, et cetera. And so a lot of what we do is I think soft skill related, right? Delivering training or whatever the case may be, and those are factors that are sometimes harder to discuss, right? Do you have experience doing secure Go code? Is a lot easier than can you influence people to get them to do things they don't want to do?
So when I listen to the three of you talk, what's come to my mind is, and this is a continual, I guess, discussion from the previous podcasts, is we, unlike other industries to some degree, operate in a very fast-paced moving industry. Program languages are coming up, very quickly. Technologies are changing, the problems we're trying to solve. And I think your point is absolutely right on, Chris. There's going to be experts in those particular technology, like hardware security. There was a lot of incredible experts sitting there, but as we started seeing Meltdown and Spectra and all these hardware vulnerabilities coming in, we started understanding that we needed to fill that pool. And so people came in, to your point, Azar, they may have come in with not a lot of understanding, but they ended up in time learning those skills to be able to at least get to that 90%. Now the big word is, around supply chain. How do we handle it? There was experts in that field, and so I feel it's always going to be, when we go back to the initial question around talent shortage, I think we're always going to have that, because we're always influenced by many different things in the industry, how things are shifting, how regulations are coming up, going back to the initial point, how technology is changing. And, I think we won't have it as soon as it slows down, but I feel like we're not in a big tanker, like a big tanker boat. We're actually in a speedboat that's relatively long, that's having to shift and change rather quickly.
Well, so on that point, can I just, sorry, Chris, can I just ask a quick question for Tanya here? Do you see or get a sense that there just simply aren't I want to be careful about enough, but do you think that there's a limited pool of people to choose from when it comes to cybersecurity skills and or some of those softer skills as well, right? I guess you have to have some sort of innate talent to be able to pick up the terms that we're talking about, right? So that pool changes, right? But is there just not enough of those, or can we expand that pool?
I think it's an interesting question. I'm going to go back to sports, right? I could want to be a really good skier, but I may be given all the tools. Going back to Chris's point, I can go down like the brown, like all these different, like the green run, the blue run, and the black diamonds. But I may still not be a very good skier, So it's where's your threshold as an industry in terms of what you're willing to take, and can you train up? Like, does that, going back to the soft skills, do they have that intuition to be able to, be able to train up where you want them to be in the time that you want them to be?
Yeah, and this PR Newswire kind of release from January 2023 that we'll reference in the show notes, this claims that there's 1.1 million people that work in cybersecurity and like 773,000 open jobs. And I don't know about the panel here, but I've always, people always throw out these numbers like, we're 2.2 million people short, or we're 101 point, these numbers just get thrown out all the time as far as how many people we are short. And So I'm willing to concede, yes, we need more people in cybersecurity, but these numbers are always, there's always somebody has a different number for me as far as how many people we actually need to equip.
And we should be careful. We're talking, sorry, Chris, we're talking about pre-current downturn numbers, right? Because obviously a number of tech folks, I think we talked about in the last episode, a number of tech folks are obviously, layoffs and other things are happening. And security is not immune. Even if there are openings, they're still being let go from existing, roles.
So couple of observations there. So let's for a second leave the numbers. Let's look at reality. Have we solved
numbers aren't real?
Reality? I know, but that, Chris, did you just where did you get that number from?
Just making them up. Making the numbers up.
Chris himself just said that the numbers are there and people keep saying numbers, but the numbers change.
Yeah.
Okay?
Correct.
So let's look at the reality of the thing. Have we solved all possible security problems in all the industries that need it? No. We keep agreeing that we have to train. I'm talking like Bernie Sanders here. We have agreed that we have to keep. I will once again ask you trained all developers. We haven't, right? Mm-hmm. Now, on the subject of soft skills, we don't need every single cybersecurity person to have soft skills. We do need some of them to be the kind that goes into a dark room and you just have to put pizza under the door every 2 days and get results, right? That's fine. I've been there. I was there.
Yep.
I opened the door. But anyway, so it's possible. But my point is, if we haven't solved all the problems, if we still feel that we need more people coming in, and if we constantly complain to each other, oh my God, I had this position open for 6 months and I just can't feel so. What are we doing wrong?
Oh, that's a big topic.
But that's what this one of these other kind of references that we'll put in the show notes, from Access Cyber, where they looked at 10,000 entry-level cyber opportunities over a 6-month period and took away a couple of interesting things that I think we've those of us in this discussion, we're aware of this. Like, what is the number? I'll give you the exact number. They said 71% of roles that listed junior or entry level required 1 to 3 years of experience.
Wow.
How broken. Yeah,
that's 1 to 3 years of experience on technologies that have existed for 3 years.
Yeah, that's a whole other.
Like requirements for 5 years for things that have been going on for 1 year.
Right. Yeah, and that's just recruiting madness, from that perspective. But the basis of this problem is we've got people coming out of school and they're looking at all these opportunities that are 1 to 3 years. Like I've met with or talked to a number of different cyber security graduates in the last year that are struggling to find jobs. And it just
let me ask you something. When people do certifications, sometimes I see that if a job requirement is asking for certification, they are willing to trade it for a certain number of years of experience in the industry.
It's a double-edged sword, though, because, for instance, let's take, I shouldn't take their name, but one very popular 3 and a number organization that has security certifications.
Well, we can say who it is. I mean, I'm a member. Yeah, I mean, I have the CISSP, and so I know exactly where you're going. Yep. It has a 5-year requirement to get a CISSP, and if CISSP is on the list of job requirements, I just graduated from school. Now they did come up with a solution for that. They do have an associate where you can pass the exam without the years of experience and then get the full. So I feel like they've dealt with that a little bit, but it's still also part of the problem.
Right.
Just a second, Tanya. My question is, if you can trade years of experience for a certification is the other way around in certifications that don't require experience themselves.
No, at
So
least
I
not
can't
how I've
come
seen
in-
it in the industry.
I can't come into a job and say, hey, I don't have 3 years of experience, but I have a blah, blah, blah certificate.
So the problem we're talking now, I think, is a recruitment problem in terms of how they position these jobs. If you look at the standard, putting security aside, and you just look at the different roles, like a standard developer, there are certain ways that recruiters think about the levels that you have and what you bring into the company. So entry level, it could be very well, I don't know what you said, X, Y, and Z. What I've started to see a little bit more is some of these recruitment companies are actually trading degrees. Like if you have a Bachelor of Science, then they, you can either have a degree or you can have a years of experience versus the combined both, because I think they're acknowledging that. And I think universities are also starting to respond to this by trying to find internship programs in these different companies, right? So I think there's more that schools and academia can do to better set up their graduates to go in. But I think in parallel, there's better that companies and the recruitment can do to be able to make sure that they have a place to go, especially if we're crying out loud that we have, ring the bell, we have a, talent shortage, woo, town crier, then,
Yeah,
they
so
should be doing
actually,
something
Tanya,
about it.
you bring up
Yeah.
a really good point. So in shifting a little bit to solution space, if we're talking about roles that are entry level that require 1 to 3 years of experience, right? As much as that would be weird and should be considered as weird, like just graduate with in-demand skills, but you can't get the job because you haven't been in a job that, circular problem there. Using co-op and internship placement as in place of or to be to accrue years of experience should be something we should look at, right? It should be used certainly by hiring managers, if not by HR teams. And I'm not saying it doesn't. I don't know that if it does or not, but that's a great way to develop talent. As somebody who went through a university program that had co-op and intern options, and in fact, one of the schools for most of our undergraduate degrees require intern or co-op as part of the curriculum. It's a great way to get on-the-job experience. And in security, right, I think unlike a lot of places, we generally have co-ops doing real work, right?
Yeah.
That are actionable and useful to the business and develop certain skills, right? Now that may change if you're talking government versus private sector, and certain private sector, banks versus commercial apps or whatever. So that's going to vary by placement, but I think that's a great way to develop that talent pool and get them into those entry level positions so that they can grow.
Yeah, and I think you're right on. I talked to a lot of different people that have been interns in the last couple of years, and nobody is doing busy work anymore. Like interns are being put to real work in the business because it's actually a recruitment tool for the company.
Yep.
And like Cisco, where I worked for 11 years, is one of the most excellent companies at doing this, in that they bring in interns multiple years through their college career and then make them an offer before they graduate. And so they've been able to kind of grow them into that. And it's odd that we don't solve this problem, to your point, Matt, like in this, why isn't everybody just doing this? Why does anybody who graduates with a cybersecurity degree, if we have a 700,000 person shortage, why don't they have an opportunity? Let's give me some more ideas about that.
Because we are not only talking about an internship, which is something that is that business have programs to manage and whatnot, but many times we are talking about an apprenticeship. So both at Autodesk and Squarespace, I was fortunate to work with people who came in as interns and came in barely knowing which button to push to get the elevator. And they got out with offers in their hands because during their internship, during the 3 months that they spent with us, the team had an opportunity to shape them into what we wanted somebody to start as. Mm-hmm. Right? So there was that investment from the team, from the side of the people who would be pulling these people in as actual employees, to say, okay, we are going to not only give this person a chance, but we are going to actively work into shaping them into what we want.
We may have just solved the problem.
But the problem is that it's not something that you may expect universities to do. B, it's highly dependent from the team. Yeah. Does the team have the time for that? Is it a team that's under high pressure? Many won't have it.
Yeah.
Do they have the soft skills to do that?
But those are all solvable problems, right? Like let's double click on the academia, right? My daughter is senior year, university, won't say which one, it's in Canada. And, before going into her program, I was like, we need to think about internships. Like, in this day and age, most parents would like their kids to walk away with a job. And so what's the way to make sure they walk away with a job? Make sure that the university offers an internship program. And so I think there's a way that some level of pressure in terms of administration, we can, as community of parents, etc., can potentially influence what universities do.
I think this is a business problem, though, right? Like, I think like any business that's out there saying, "Oh, we can't hire any entry level people." Well, if you're saying you can't because you can't find them or you can't find people that are qualified, that's on you. You should build a program. Izar, to your point, you should build an apprenticeship program. Like, you should bring people in. And I know, all of us have spent most of our careers mentoring, teaching, bringing people along with us. And so it seems like this issue is always such a big deal, but it sounds like from what we've all experienced, there are ways to solve this. There are ways to do this. It's just the businesses maybe they just don't want to invest in the apprenticeship. I want people to come to me prepared to do the job.
And I'll just say, sorry, Tanya, just really briefly, we've also all benefited from mentorship.
Oh,
yes.
Right?
Yes.
Right, that's it.
And sponsorship as well.
Yeah.
It's an interesting point that you had said. Yes, it is a business problem for companies, but what level of responsibility do you feel universities have in being able to help also drive to solve that problem?
Wait a second.
It's a question.
Let me pull a Tanya here. Let's double click on that.
Can we put that in the jar?
I have no opinion.
Can we put that in the jar? Seriously, that term "double click," it just runs. I can't do it.
I love it. Double click.
There's a huge difference between putting the thing on the business and putting the thing on academia. Like, I've been in academia for a very brief time. I married into academia, so I know how it works. And you know what? Sometimes the best way of preparing people for the world is not through academia. Now, Matt and I, and if I'm not mistaken, Tanya, you as well, years and years ago, we volunteered at what was the
NECCDC, New England Collegiate Cyber Defense Challenge.
Okay, so those who are not familiar, it's a national thing where universities sending teams to pose as IT teams, and then you have a blue team, a white team, and a red team, and these people get attacked. It's hilarious. It's amazing. But those kids really learned something there. But what I was very surprised to know at the time, and perhaps that changed nowadays, I don't think so, but perhaps the chance is there. These people came not as students from a course teaching that stuff. They came as members of a university club that was interested in that stuff. Mm-hmm. Right? So my whole point here is that perhaps academia is not really equipped to teach people up to a point, and here I'm doing the Bernie Sanders again, where they can go into an entry level job.
But they have to be. They have to be.
Wait. Or we as an industry are asking from people entry-level jobs, but we are asking them to come entry-level plus. We are expecting them to know a lot more than they actually would know in an entry level.
Yeah, go ahead, Tanya. You first, because
add very quickly. I actually agree with you. I brought up academia because I thought it was an interesting way for us to explore, and let me explain why. So last year, I went back home to my high school to be able to just talk about security, and they actually have a really good security program, application security. They dive into cybersecurity, and I think that's phenomenal for a high school. They focus on it. I was lucky that the teacher that instilled that program was actually what got me into computer science. But what was really starting for me,
now you have to say the name of the school.
It's Dominican College in Port Stewart. Great program.
And
I was there, and there's so many incredible kids in that class, and we're having a conversation. How do I get exposure? How do I get these people to see actually what's happening in these companies? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I was thinking of all the ways we could do it. So you're absolutely right. There is talent coming out, but how are we feeding that in? So Chris, you're all right. I agree. It's absolutely a business problem because we're not really trying to solve it. And yet we're crying there's a problem, but there's
so I want to support it. I want to support both of you, Izar and Tanya, on this.
I agree with him now.
So I'm going to agree with your original point about academia being a place where we need to do work, and agree with Izar that business is a place we need to do work. I'm going to go back to, I'm going to just flash it on screen, my original chart. It's hard to read now that I wrote on the other side. But a problem that I think that we hit on occasion, especially with new people entering the field, is we get people who say, oh, I want to do security. Okay, what type? And there's just so much, right?
Pen testing. They all say pen testing. They do.
They do, but they also think about pen testing in terms of I want to work at I want to attack banks, or I want to do auditing. They don't say they want to do auditing, but they want to do auditing. And nobody in the right mind should do auditing, but I'm sure there are people who do auditing for a living, and that's great. They should do that. That's not me. So it's a special innate talent I think you have to have for that. But there's just so much in the field, right? Hardware security, application security, IoT security, network security. And so one of the things that both academia and business can do, and whether it's a partnership or they do it independently, is expose the students or the new folks entering business to the different aspects of security to help them focus their mindset and their effort to get onto that path. Yeah. Because if you just jump right into the apprenticeship program, for instance, right, that Izar was talking about, well, what if that apprenticeship is in website security, but they really want to focus on network and hardware security, right? Yeah. And you've missed the mark, and you're going to turn them off, and they're not going to come back, or they're going to leave the company and go somewhere else. So I've seen this done in a couple of places where new people entering the field, whether they're coming in as interns or they're coming in as really new hires, entry-level new hires, is they go into a rotation program. Yeah. Right. And the companies do this. They have the ability to move people around in the various businesses. So you might send them to cybersecurity or AppSec, or you might send them to work with some developers who are working on security or whatever, right? And they get that exposure that lets them pick their focus. Well, wouldn't it be nice if academia could do the same, right? Through either seminars or the way that rather than having a security class, have a class on the aspects of security.
And that's where I want to pick on academia for a minute, okay? Because everybody, yeah, but I'm gonna do it anyway. So, take this as a new question. Every time I meet a CS student, I ask them, so how have you been exposed to security in your program? Because I'm fascinated by the answer. Because you know what I hear all the time? I had a network security class. So, well, what about your, so what programming language did they teach you? And then they say, almost all the time they say Java, maybe they say Python. I said, okay, what do they mention security at all? And the answer is almost always never. They don't even talk about security. So academia is part of the problem here in preparing people to get these jobs that we need them to come into. I'm going to say business needs to have programs to manage this and to bring people in and care for them and find the right spot for them and teach them, the apprenticeship thing. But academia owns some of this.
So I'm going to push back on that for a second. You mentioned that you asked that of CS students. I don't expect CS students to learn practical security. When a CS student is doing security, I expect them to do lambda calculus and all that logic and good stuff and all the matrices of...
Look at Matt's face.
But today, when I studied this stuff, there was only CS, right? It was CS and computer engineering. Those were your... Man, I'm dating myself here. But then one day... you got software engineering came up. Software engineering, I would expect somebody who studies software engineering to study actual practical development security, right? But not from a CS student. That's not where they live. They live in algorithms. They live in the math of things. They don't live in the practical, let's move bytes around thing.
I'm going to let Matt handle this.
I'm gonna.
We're handing it over to you. It's our Matt showdown.
I have to object. So I have just a level set here. I have both a bachelor's and a master's in computer science. My security exposure in that whole set of curriculum. First off, my first languages were assembly, Pascal, and C. And network security requirements, and cryptography were core courses, right? And I absolutely think that CS, computer science majors, in learning the theory, should understand where things can go wrong and be able to then integrate secure design principles. Not necessarily security capabilities. I think you're right in terms of software. If you have dedicated software engineering or information assurance or information systems degrees, the practical application side, there are certain things, and I will say I did take some courses around Windows security, for instance, that were practical because they were electives, right? And they were easy electives, and I was working in a company that had Windows at the time, and so. There's the practical aspect, and I think that there is a place for that. But I think computer science, we need computer science people and computer engineering people to understand the core fundamentals of what makes a secure system, not because they learned how to program, but because they build the systems that people use to program, right? Where they're dealing on these algorithms, and they need to understand what these mean. They have to have that capability, my opinion.
But Matt, let me put it like this. I'm not talking about the good stuff that we see from the Netherlands and stuff like that, but many a times lately it has happened to me that I've read an academic paper on a subject that's near and dear to us, threat modeling. And I read that stuff and I look at it and go, wait, are we talking about the same thing? Is it 1998 and I didn't notice? What is happening here? There is a complete, not complete, again, there are some universities doing amazing work in threat modeling. But in general, in security, there is still a disconnect between academia and the real world.
I 100% agree with you. I'm not saying that
that's the problem.
I'm not saying that there isn't a gap.
That's
I'm saying
not
that they should be there.
That is the problem. Why would we prepare people to in a dream world? Here, just go here for 4 years in a dream bubble, and then we'll drop you in the real world.
And by the way, everything's not real.
So I'm again making the distinction, okay, between CS and practical computing. Me too. I have the bachelor's and the master's in CS. And even my master's is CS/security. And yes, it was crypto, and it was this and that and the other one. And you know what they taught me in crypto? Again, the MNPQ of the RSA algorithm and how that thing happens.
Which is so practical. I use that every day. I'm like...
That's not what you want people to learn. You want to learn which ciphers to use, where to put the keys, how do you store a key properly, right? That's what solves problems today. People how to put in a key on the law.
Can I just share something, right? So I'm going to give you, so I studied, I don't have a master's, but I do have a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science. And I studied in Wales. And I studied in Ada. We used the Vienna Development Lifecycle. We also did assembly language. We also did have an internship for a year, which was amazing. But what was so amazing about this class that I just couldn't believe it was we ended up spending 2 weekends, the whole computer science team at Outward Bound, learning how to work together as a team. Because that is a reality check. When you write code, you have to know what the other person is doing. And then what we ended up doing for our final was doing the whole requirements and the coding and making sure we're meeting the customer needs. Security was a part of that discussion because when you're talking and understanding and being able to translate, so we actually got the end-to-end picture. And maybe that's another, like, maybe you're right in some cases, as are with the reality check. It's when you code and you're doing like, computer science, you have one view, but you have to also understand how that fits into a bigger view. Because the biggest issue we see, right, from a coding perspective, yes, they're making, there maybe not be, coding securely or using kind of, algorithms that maybe are kind of obsolete. But a lot of it's got to do with making assumptions about what you're doing versus I am. You're making that call, you doing that checks. And we miss that. That's a fundamental piece.
Yeah, I think we're gonna need to put a pin in this, and I'm gonna say, why don't we come back to this in our next episode? Because I think we got a lot more. We got a lot more to dive into here. We barely scratched the surface, and we definitely have some differing opinions, which I love. I love the fact that we're coming at this from different perspectives. But let's wrap up this episode of the Security Table for today, and we will promise to come back and pick this up again in our next episode and continue to wrangle and try to wrestle with this issue. I mean, we had some good things coming out of this. Like, we realized, yes, there is a role for academia. Yes, there is a role for businesses to be better from apprenticeships. Yes, we need to do a better job at helping entry-level people get into our field. I think we're all going to agree on that. But I think there's some more intricate details that we can dive into. So stay tuned for the next episode of the Security Table, where we will continue this debate.
The mission.